Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Statistics Canada reported terrible news for the Canadian economy today. It grew at a meager 1%, a third lower than foreseen, and lower than our population grew. In fact, it was the 8th out of the last 9th economic quarter where our per capita GDP shrunk. It's fallen more than any other G7 country since the year before COVID. This is the direct result of higher taxes on capital gains, on energy, on work. Why won't they accept our common sense plan? Better yet, why don't they call a carbon tax election so we can fix the economy?
The Honourable Minister for Employment and Workforce Development.
I know the Leader of the official opposition doesn't like facts getting in the way of his good Halloween story, but here are the facts. Mr. Speaker, 1.6% inflation. The Bank of Canada Governor...
Colleagues, it's important for those, of course, to be able to follow and for the chair to be able to follow what's being said. I'm having difficulty hearing this. I know people who are using the translation devices are also having difficulty. The Honourable Minister of Employment and Workforce Development from the top, please.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. There is a lot of chocolate being consumed on the other side. I can see how energized the Conservatives are, but they're upset because we're sharing the facts. 1.6% inflation in this country. Interest rates are down, 47,000 new jobs in the last month. The International Monetary Fund has Canada positioned as the fastest growing economy in the G7 in 2025. What else, Mr. Speaker? We're going to keep supporting Canadians. We're going to build houses from coast to coast. The Conservatives don't need to like it, but that's how we're supporting Canadians each and every day.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the American economy is roaring while the Canadian economy is snoring. In the most recently reported economic quarter, U.S. GDP grew 3 times faster than Canadian, despite our out-of-control population growth. In fact, per-person income is now lower than it was 10 years ago in Canada, while it's gone up 18% in the U.S. The gap between U.S. and Canadian incomes is worse than at any time in the last century. Why won't they call a carbon tax election so Canadians can vote for powerful paychecks that buy affordable homes on safe streets?
The Honourable Minister for Employment and Workforce Development.
Mr. Speaker, it's quite surprising that the Leader of the Opposition isn't taking the bare facts on board. But quite frankly, not just 1.6 inflation or 47,000 jobs. Let's go to what he's trying to distract Canadians from, which as Leader of the official opposition, as somebody who someday wants to sit on this side of the House, will simply not go and do the work to get his security clearance. He will not protect his MPs. He will not protect Canadians. Shame on him, Mr. Speaker. Get his security clearance.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Canada's collapsing per-person economy. It means lower wages, which means that Canadians can afford less food, less housing, and governments can afford less for schools and hospitals. It's the direct result. So these are first economic data points that have come out since they jacked up the capital gains tax and now driving billions of dollars south of the border. Why don't they follow our common sense plan to axe taxes? In fact, in addition to getting rid of the carbon tax, why not follow our plan to axe the GST on new homes to build 30,000 more per year? It's common sense. Let's bring it home.
The Honourable Minister for Employment and Workforce Development.
Mr. Speaker, we can do the facts game all day long. Let's just focus. The Leader of the Opposition likes to remind people that he has roots in Alberta. So let's talk about the Liberal government's investments in Alberta, Mr. Speaker. $22 billion in clean energy investments for clean electricity, for hydrogen, for greening the grid, for making sure that we have the greenest barrel of oil in the world, Mr. Speaker. The third in the world for foreign direct investment. We are the #1 in the world per capita for foreign direct investment. They don't want to tell Canadians about it. We will, and we'll make sure there are good jobs from coast to coast to coast.
Other Randy is ahead of you,
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Malheureusement.
Unfortunately, Statistics Canada has revealed today that economic growth in Canada in the third quarter was at just 1%, a weak 1%, a third lower than expected, two-thirds lower than in the United States. Our per capita GDP has gone down for the last 8 quarters out of 9. And it's going down more quickly than in any other G7 country. Is this not the proof that doubling the debt and increasing taxes on capital gains is destroying our economy? The Honourable Minister of Public Works and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Conservative leader is looking for good news. Well, interest rates are down. Inflation is down. Unemployment is down. But it's Halloween, Mr. Speaker, and there's one thing that scares kids. It's that the Conservative leader refuses to get his security clearance to protect Canadians and members of his caucus. When's he going to answer the question and protect? It's a question that all kids are asking today. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition. What's scaring people is that their paychecks are getting smaller, Mr. Speaker, every year. And that paycheck can't buy a house because this government doubled the cost of housing. That minister, he's been trying to find affordable housing in his city, and he hasn't been able to after 9 years of this Liberal government, which has doubled the cost, despite the fact that in my time, we built 180,000 new affordable homes, and now we're proposing to cut the GST on new homes. Will he accept my common sense plan? The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, kids in my riding are smarter than the Conservative leader thinks. They know how to count up to 6, and it's indeed 6 affordable housing units that the Conservative leader built. Not in my riding, but in all of Canada throughout his entire mandate when he was in charge of housing at the time. But Canadian kids need to know if they should be scared of him. He's not getting a security clearance to protect his own MPs.